Hey there, we're the Westlaw Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Scuzz. We'll call it a draw then. Scouts Bell.
Wow. The football game aside, like this entire weekend of Northwestern sports has been just full of tight, down to the end, physical, just tight games from basketball to field hockey, and then obviously the Michigan game at Wrigley. I mean, we'll talk hoops, we'll talk field hockey in a little bit, but kind of get this bad taste out of our mouth first before we kind of finish it off on a positive note. I think. I mean, we've been at gut punch losses. We've seen gut punch losses before, and this one just felt. I mean, John, you were there. This one felt worse.
This is one of the all-time worst ones for me personally. I'm stressed to find one worse. It's as rough as I've ever felt with one. And yeah, I was sitting in the behind the end zone, with some of the parents in the parent section, which I talked about last year for the Illinois game. It is just the best group of people to have surrounding you, and it has the effect of very much mitigating the fact that there's like 80 to 85% Wolverine fans in the stadium. It's like, again, it's like where we were. It was great, and everyone was into it, and yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me that made this one so brutal is it felt like we should have won the game. It feels like we should have won the game now. And I don't mean from an X's and O's or a statistical perspective. I mean, like, if you're a Northwestern fan, your Northwestern fandom is no doubt defined by magic moments where you're like, I mean, I think back to 54-51, 25 years ago against these same Michigan Wolverines. And I always bring up when Damian Anderson dropped that pass, I knew we were winning that game. I didn't know how, but I don't know what to say. Like, I felt it in my bones that it's like you can't define stuff like that. And I know we talk about, we get deep into stats and schemes and stuff like that, but sometimes it's just a feeling and the way things feel. And, with a bowl bid on the line and this horrible Wrigley streak, entering the fourth down big to the Michigan Wolverines and then digging it all out and coming back and putting it all. And it's just like, every Northwestern fan had that feeling where it's like, this is it, this is one of those. And then it just wasn't. And, I've been in my feelings for 2 days on this one.
Yeah, this one stung. I had the fortune of, all of my family members were otherwise indisposed during this game. In good ways. They were all off, running around. My wife and daughters were off at a play, and my son ended up going over to a friend's house. And so I was alone in the house screaming at the TV, much like I was during the USC game. And I'll be honest, this did not feel as bad as some that I've seen in person. I think in person this probably felt a lot worse. And I don't know if it's because I just had a similar experience the prior Friday night of a lot of, I mean, obviously that is not a game that we had the lead in the fourth quarter or, a statistical advantage in turnovers that is unprecedented, and a whole bunch of other things. But when we got that second turnover in the fourth quarter, I think I said it out loud to myself, if nobody else, like, we have to get points. We need 3 more points. And the back half of that fourth quarter felt it's funny because at some point and during one of these games, the announcers have said that Northwestern wants to view themselves like college football's Thanos. They want to view themselves as being inevitable, and that the back half of that game, it felt like Michigan was inevitable at some point. You knew they were going to get a shot at 3, and if we did not put 3 more points on the board, it was going to end exactly the way it did. And so I guess for roughly 30 minutes, I was fearing for this exact outcome and for it to come out this way. Hurts like hell, but not quite as bad as it probably felt in the stadium.
I think for me, it felt as bad as the Nebraska Hail Mary.
That's a good comp. That's a great comp, actually.
I mean, a game that like we had and then just ripped away late. I mean, the Hail Mary was different, but that gut punch at the end, and like the final, like I completely agree with you, Eric. We needed points on those one of those last 2 drives, and to not run the clock down and to lose yardage and to just give them opportunity after opportunity, especially because Underwood picked this week to finally decide to be like somewhat good. Yeah, he threw 3 interceptions. And yeah, there were 5 turnovers in that game. So, I mean, he's still a freshman, but like he had as good of a game as he's had all year. And like when it mattered down the stretch, he put it together. And like, Alan Marsh, your true freshman, 189 receiving yards on 12 catches, tore us apart. And even with all the stats except for one were just so completely in Michigan's favor. That one stat in our favor was the turnovers, but like we couldn't convert a 3rd down. We were 2 of 12 on 3rd down, and even with all that, we had the chance. We had it in our hand. Like we needed a stop, and like we'd gotten stops that we needed, and then their running back goes out. I mean, he's their number 2. They're on their like the 3rd string running back, and he starts gashing us, picking up first downs. And it's just like every step they got closer, and once they crossed the 30-yard line, and now we're not kicking a 60-yard field goal into the wind. And it's like we're going to need to either block this or. Because he's not gonna miss it. We're gonna need to block it, or we need to get a turnover. Because if he goes out there, he's gonna hit. He's not gonna miss a 3rd one.
Right.
That's where my head was. And even so, like it's a chip shot, and I'm just sitting okay. And you texted right there. Najee Story is gonna block this.
Right. And that's the thing is I had no basis for that other than like. Isn't that how this game has to end? I'm just like isn't that the karmic justice that Najee deserves, and like the way the rest of the tenor of this game. And it's so funny because not funny, but I mean like you're so right about the stats. You look at the stats, and Michigan just absolutely dominated statistically. They had an awesome game plan. Based around the RPO quick slant, our Hello Darkness, our old friend, the RPO quick slant. And they hit us with it a bunch. And Marsh was just eating. And, the corners had a rough day in this one. Early on, I'd say that the safeties did a little bit too. That's kind of overshadowed by the transcendent game Robert Fitzgerald had in this game. I mean, this is a guy who's had unbelievable games this season, and he painted a Sistine Chapel. 15 tackles. He had 10 solos and that unreal pick. But again, I think to kind of go back to it with like the statistical, because you're right. I mean, you look and you're like, 3 of those turnovers, like Michigan, were just Michigan fumbles. Like they really did what they wanted for so much of this game.
And honestly, the last turnover, they went for it on 4th down. They didn't get it. Like they were, it was going to be a turnover on downs. The fact that he fumbled and we picked it up, that didn't matter.
Right.
I mean, it turned out to be a turnover on paper, but like we were getting the ball either way at the end of that play. But still, I mean that's neither here nor there.
I will say the 2 picks we're both, and we've talked about this, like Tim McGarrigle has, he has that Hank bone in him where he's got a couple of plays where he's got the ability to throw out a couple great pressure looks and discombobulate you. And Underwood, I mean, they earned 2 picks. I mean, both were awesome plays, and Fitzgerald's was an unreal display of athleticism. But I mean, those were earned. But Michigan really, they had a great offensive game plan. They really did what they wanted. Um, on the other side, our offense was an absolute disaster. But Scuzz mentioned like feeling different in the stadium. I think that's the thing. I mean, in the stadium, but also that piece of that Northwestern fandom where it's just like, I I can't explain why we're going to win this game because every stat tells you that we shouldn't, but it just feels like this is finally the time that it's our day after this miserable stretch that we've been on. And then instead, no. And that's the thing. I know that the big takeaway for so many people is the performance of the offense, which I totally get. I just somehow was insulated from that in the moment during the game.
Yeah. So should we talk about the offense or should I get white hot with rage?
Those are mutual exclusive.
They are.
Then let's talk about the offense, and then we'll light that.
Okay, then I'll
let that rage build up a little bit.
Then I'll Hulk out.
Okay.
So, if you guys remember during the the USC game, right? We had that drive. I believe it was the beginning of the third quarter where on 3rd and 10 we ran for 7. It was 4th and 3 from close to midfield, and we decided to punt. And I think we were even on their side of the 50, and we decided to punt. And I talked about being down 7 when you're facing a live wire offense like USC. Like, you've got to take your shots. And in this game, we took our shots early on. We had the fake punt right out of the gate. You can quibble with some of the play calling, et cetera, but like, we threw touchdown passes on our first 2 possessions. One was called back on a penalty, a really bad pick penalty that I'm kind of like, how did we even think that was going to work? Like much in the way of, I guess we were maybe inspired by the USC punting bullshit, because it was a really obvious pick, and maybe I think was it Elegon or Wagner, whoever did it, maybe they just didn't sell it well enough as a block.
If you're gonna run a pick play, you gotta sell it like it's an accident.
And then on the second drive, they had Welsing in the corner. The pass was there. He was wide open. It was a touchdown, and their defensive end just got his fingertips on the football. So they talked about it on the broadcast. We have like the 130th touchdown rate once you're in the red zone.
Red zone offense, yeah.
It's
horrendous.
Even our third drive, we got to the 16-yard line, and there was I think it was a false start penalty, and we got backed up 5. So there was a lot of, well, then after the Elegon touchdown catch that gets called back for pass interference, right, pushes it out back past the 20, et cetera. But that's 17 points that we should have started this game with instead of 9. And yes, all of those things ultimately fall at the feet of the offensive coordinator. I've talked about this before. The coaching staff is ultimately responsible because they not just call the plays, not just prepare the game plan for the week. They also develop the players, recruit the players, all the stuff. It all ultimately falls back on the coaches. But it is, and this is not I'm not trying to make the case of, everything is fine, yada yada, but more I just don't think against this defense, one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. This is not Penn State missing their middle linebacker and having a complete crisis of identity and confidence, everything else when we play them. Michigan has been one of the best defenses in the Big Ten, particularly against the run. You saw how much trouble we were having run with Komalafe. And yet we did pretty well early on. Now here's where it gets real though, because to start the fourth quarter, we went on a 7-play, 75-yard drive. The first play was a sack. Well, they said sack. Oh, the intentional grounding, yeah, which
grounding,
is
yeah.
kind of bullshit. And then Stone come, and maybe he just needed that kind of like bullshit thing to happen to him. It was legit grounding because he threw it out of bounds. It didn't cross the line of scrimmage. It's kind of like black and white. But maybe he needed that to happen earlier in the game, because then he rips off a 32-yard pass to Wildy, a short pass to Elegon. He hits another short pass to Wagner, and then goes deep to Elegon on a back shoulder throw. I don't think we've seen that kind of like underthrown. Elegon comes back to the ball, and that was against Michigan's best corner. Where the F has that play been all year? Yeah. By the way, this is not the part where I get mad yet. That's a totally different topic. And then he just blitzes the seam with the most beautiful pass I've seen him throw all year. Where in the hell was this drive the first 3 quarters of the game? Again, if you're going to, like, I get it that Michigan is a great team and you're trying to shrink the game, et cetera, but like, this was like, I mean, we went on these kind of drives against Penn State. And it's like, where did this come from? And how did, after this drive, and then, Komalafe just barreling his way through the Michigan defense for a 6-yard touchdown run, do we come out so anemic on those last 2 drives? And this is where I do think like that mentality that bit us against USC popped back up. And we have seen this time and time again in Northwestern. And maybe this is why it didn't bother me so much, because it took me back to like 2016 and 2015, desperately trying to cling to those leads. There's that Michigan game in, what was it, the 2015 season, where they threw there was a crazy, insane catch way downfield.
Yeah. And like they got the field goal on, even weren't set. And yes. That was the bloody flag uniform game.
That game was a more improbable loss to me to Michigan than this one, because this, like, I could see this one playing out a half a quarter in advance. And I feel like the coaching staff in those last 2 drives got real, the sphincters tightened. And like, I had Ryan Lindley was talking about this online, like, how are they not running on the first play of that last drive? And I'm like, I don't know. They threw a screen pass to the wide receiver. It should be a pretty straightforward, like, get the ball rolling, get the chains moving. Komalafe was, dead to rights pretty much every time we handed it off up the middle. I don't mind that play. I was begging for a screen. So this is not like run versus pass necessarily, but and I don't think it's even play calling necessarily. It's just like whatever they were doing in those last 2 drives was not working. It was not the right mentality. It was not the right play calls. It was not the right approach. And still, Hyman got loose, ripped off a 30-yard gain that would have not iced this game, but put a hell of a lot more pressure on the Michigan offense if they got the ball back, and it got called back on another bullshit holding. The same kind of shit that got called against us on Michigan's last drive, that got called against us when we were,
or didn't get called on Michigan's
or didn't get called on Michigan's last drive, right. And got called against us when we were playing Nebraska way back when. And so like this is, I've been ranting now for a little while here, and I promise this isn't the part where I get really mad. The offense was up and down and inconsistent and not great like it's been all year, but this was no different than we've seen for weeks and weeks, and against arguably the best defense we've played to date this season. So I'm not trying to say that's an excuse. I'm just kind of more in the vein of like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And even with all that.
Well, yeah. And we were still there. That's one of the things though, that obviously, and we haven't talked about this yet, but we were talking about how brutal of a loss this was as a Northwestern fan. I mean, the guy who made it plain just how hard he was taking it was David Braun in the post-game press conference. Got unbelievably emotional. Spoke fantastically, as Braun always does. I think there's, Braun as a human being, to the extent that we all see him through the press conferences, I just, it's been nothing but first class in terms of the way he's so honest emotionally at all times. And, as Louis Vaquer, pointed out, I think in the piece afterward, Braun had a tear rolling down his cheek talking about everything. But one of the core points that Braun was making, and I think it folds into some of the stuff that Scuzz was talking about relative to the offensive play calling, and maybe part of the reason this all stings so much is I think a lot of us, and I include myself in this, have framed this season positively through the light of that 3.5 predicted over under at the start of the season based on the strength of our schedule. And it is true, we've outperformed that number. But I think it's very clear to everyone at this point that this is a really good football team in a lot of areas. And we know that if we had come out with our offense slash passing game screwed on right at all in the first week of the season, that we very easily could have won that Tulane game. If we had just, if that had been sorted out in any way. And then obviously for the past 3 weeks, we know we could have beaten Nebraska and Michigan. And we know we, had those things gone our way in the first half, could have at the very least been in that USC game for a long time. So there's a lens where you're looking at this team and being like, this team from a strictly talent standpoint could have gone like 9-3 or 10-2 this season. And it's not just that there's talent, but there's talent that is going to be hard to replicate in the future. We all know this is one of the best offensive lines Northwestern's ever had. There are 4 seniors on this offensive line, and they're all playing out of their minds. It's like run blocking wasn't there, but Michigan's an elite pass rushing team, and Stone was sacked once. I mean, he had time to throw a lot in this game.
He did have a number of passes deflected.
Yeah, so, they got their hands on.
They didn't get to him, but they got their hands up.
Yeah, they got 3.
That was
Yeah, they batted.
Even when they brought heat, though, like to your point, we were picking it up. The running backs were doing a phenomenal job. Yeah, that was a real and credit to the announcers. They called that out.
Yeah,
very much like the praise they heaped on the O-line, the praise they heaped on Robert Fitzgerald. That was palpable during the broadcast.
Yeah, and and it's like we've got an interior of like Carmine Bastone and Najee Story. I mean, those are 2 really strong senior guys. It should be mentioned that I think on the big run that Michigan broke, one or both of those guys wasn't on the field. It was a bad roll of the dice. But it's just like Uline, right? And Fitzgerald. This in a lot of ways is a really special football team. And I was thinking in terms of like, I feel like you could in a lot of ways stack this with like the Gator Bowl team or a team like that. I do think just about any of the other teams, though, that you'd be going to look and stack just had a way more established passing game and way more consistent quarterback play, and that is what it is. But even with all that, this team is just so good in a couple of ways that you can look and be like, when Braun is getting really emotional and being like, I don't want anyone saying, hey, you put up a good fight, like we expect to win this game. It's not just like coach speak. He knows he's got a really good football team. And I think everyone in that locker room knows that they have a team that could easily be 7-3 right now, and they're not. And that folds into the whole sting of not just this game but this whole season.
All right, Scuzz.
You know what would have made David Braun a lot more effing mad?
What?
If he had watched the Fox pregame show.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So I did not. So
I know where you're going here. This is
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
I'm right here with you.
I recorded this. Well, I guess this was just part of the regular broadcast. I didn't watch the Big Ten, or the Big Noon lead up necessarily. Maybe that was better. I doubt it.
Most of that was talking about Michigan, Ohio State, and how will Michigan be in the play. Like there was so little talk about Northwestern in the pregame show. It was ridiculous.
Guess what they kept fucking talking about the 5 minutes before this game started?
Yeah.
Michigan versus goddamn Ohio State.
Yeah.
And like, you have one goddamn job. It's to prepare me as a viewer for what I'm about to watch. And you're talking about another football game that's not for another 3 fucking weeks? Get the fuck off of my TV screen. I could not even believe like the level of disrespect that is typically rendered at Northwestern is greatly above average. But this was a whole nother level. Like I don't think that Northwestern's name even got mentioned outside of one throwaway sentence that it was either Brady Quinn or Matt. I think it was Matt Leinart basically saying like, yeah, keep showing up and win the games, beat the teams like Northwestern that you're supposed to beat, which like fair. Michigan was favored. They're supposed to win this game. But come the F on, dude. They're not favored by 20. And to not even talk about one of the two teams that's going to be in this game is just obscene.
The home team.
The home team. And I will give like Gus and Klatt did not do that. The broadcast was about as reasonable as any, Northwestern versus a big jock sniffing program, to use the parlance of one of our online friends, that you typically see. But that pregame show was offensive. And what really riles me up is that during my onboarding to Northwestern, we had a thing that we used to say in band, a common joke, which was no matter the opponent, no matter what happened, throw the flag, 10-yard penalty, holding on Northwestern, first down Michigan, because this team, this opponent has gotten more calls just because of the laundry on their back than I can ever imagine. And for that non-holding call on their last drive, I screamed at my TV because I saw Carmine being held up.
Oh, he was getting mauled.
And like, would he have tackled the quarterback at the line of scrimmage or before the first down marker? I don't know. Would he have changed the trajectory of the run? I think probably. Should it have been a penalty because we've seen it called against our own team in the exact same goddamn spot?
Right.
Yes. And that just reinforces every ounce of disgruntled and disrespected Northwestern fan in every fiber of my being. And to have it reflected so egregiously during the pregame show as if a team that is not playoff bound or in that conversation does not even matter and does not even warrant being considered, and then for us to go out and fucking take it to Michigan and pound it down their throat, like, God damn it, I was so angry. And that pissed me off more than anything else that Northwestern did or did not do in that game.
Well, and like the thing is, like, obviously, like Scuzz is in a rage, but deservedly so. And these with let's say less colorful language, David Braun echoed the exact same sentiment in the post game because his point, right, was like, stop patronizing us. Like, stop saying, oh, but Northwestern, it's so good that Northwestern like put up a showing today. And it's like no one at Northwestern thinks like that. We're not here to be like, oh, we're just like happy to be here, and we're happy to be here while you have your conversation about Ohio State, and we're just like a milestone on your journey. It's like, no, this is our story. It's our home game. It's our city. And we're here and trying to win this friggin' thing. And look, I mean, it's like we talked about, it's the same thing. It's like those two holding calls, but it's everything. We're going to talk about field hockey later. Field hockey, the defending friggin' national champion, had to go on the road to Charlottesville, Virginia and play someone else's regional despite going 18-1 and winning the Big Ten, because people are like, oh, but that's the Midwest and that's like Northwestern and they're out in like a different area. And it's like, this is the stuff that we all absorb all the time. And we're all on edge about it all the time anyway. And then you turn on a broadcast and you see something like that. I will say, fortunate for me personally, I did not have to watch that. Shouts to Steve Johnson and Gary Gillen for putting on an awesome tailgate pregame at a house very close to the stadium that a ton of Northwestern fans, Northwestern families were all there and everything. And luckily, I was having nothing but great conversations and great company, and not having to watch that horrific pregame. But but again, it wasn't, and that's the other piece too of again that being in Wrigley and you go out into the tunnel and it's like 75% Michigan fans, if not more, probably more like 85%. But you're all prepared for that, and it's right. It's like we're already having to endure this. We don't need to endure your disrespect too. Whether that disrespect is calls that are going against us on the field or just the general tenor of the way that people talk about that program. So yeah, salute Scuzz and salute Coach Braun for getting at the heart of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, to just that is what colored my experience watching this game more than anything, and to dovetail with what I was trying to get across previously is like a game in which the underdog team tries to hang on for dear life at the end and can't do it is a pretty common thing that happens across college. In fact, South Carolina was beating Texas A&M 30-3.
Yeah.
At A&M during the same window as our game, and A&M won that game 31-30. In very similar fashion. And I guarantee you South Carolina did not get spoken about the way Northwestern did in the pregame to that matchup. But it just like as painful and as frustrating as this game was, the way it played out on the field was I don't know. I'm not trying to excuse it, and I'm not trying to say, oh, we gave it our all. They showed up, they fought hard. I'm disappointed. We should have won the game for sure, and nothing any of us can say is gonna carry more weight than the way Braun talked about it in that post game.
Yeah,
no, 1,000%.
And then again, that this is all this stuff. It's all these horrible things like swirling in the ether, and of course the thing mentioned it briefly earlier, but we are still searching for two things: bowl eligibility and ending this horrific Wrigley streak.
Well, here's a bit of good news that came across the wires today.
Yeah.
And I to the surprise of no one, and I say this as we transition away from this weekend's game and start looking at what will be our final game at Wrigley Field. Came out today that, yeah, we've got an $850 million stadium opening up next year. We ain't playing no fucking Wrigley Field in November, not when we have our own palace on, up on Central. So this game against Minnesota, coming up this weekend, will be our final game at Wrigley Field for the foreseeable future. So yay for that. So what do we need? Like, this is a game against a Minnesota team that is nowhere close to what we thought they were at the beginning of the year. I mean, to call this program reeling, I mean, I don't know. Is that overstating facts?
They certainly are. Now, I will say though, they got Oregon this past week. I mean, Oregon is funny. Like, Oregon has that Indiana game, and then they have every other thing they've done this season. I mean, they're looking like a playoff team, number 8 team in the country. But I mean, to your point, I think we've talked about this before, that Oregon is Oregon. As far as we're concerned, I think the big question is, will Minnesota have Darius Taylor, and what shape will he be in if he is on the field? Now, he played in this game. He only carried it 10 times, long of 23. So really,
I watched a little bit, and what I saw of Darius Taylor, he looked fine to me.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the entire game, but what I did watch, it was like, oh, that's Darius Taylor, and he doesn't look like he's struggling at all.
Yeah, he caught 4 passes for 40, another 40 yards too. I mean, like, he's their deal. And we have plenty of experience with Darius Taylor, like 2 years ago, like in that amazing comeback. Like, we all remember Darius Taylor going off until like the stretch run. But they're I mean, this is not Minnesota's defensive team of last year by any stretch of the imagination. They are obviously not Minnesota's rushing offense of recent history either. Um, they're a team that has scrapped and clawed. I mean, like they had no business winning that Michigan State game against a bad Michigan State team, and had they not, they'd have the exact same record as us. I mean, they are. I straight up believe we're better than them in most ways. But does that guarantee us anything? No, it absolutely does not. Do I think that this is going to be probably a knockdown, drag out game? Like, yes, I do.
I feel like the biggest challenge for us going into this game is just the letdown factor. I mean, you could hear it in our three voices. It was a brutal day on Saturday, and flushing that to come back out and face Minnesota is easier said than done. And whether it's Darius Taylor, like Drake Lindsay, like whatever. I mean, Minnesota's a fine team, but they're not on the order of Michigan. They're not on the order of even Nebraska, in my opinion. Maybe have they played each other? Yeah, I guess Minnesota beat Nebraska pretty good.
Yeah, I mean they sacked
that was
that they sacked Raiola 9 times. That was the one right before us. That was the weird. That is
the bizarre game. I continue to think that that's Nebraska thinking they're about to lose Matt Rule. But I mean,
But so that like in a similar way, right? If we come into this game mentally unfocused, still thinking about the prior week, not confident in ourselves and our ability. That to me, that is the biggest factor among any factors coming into this game. Because if our team plays with the mentality and the physicality and the intensity that they played this past Saturday, we beat Minnesota going away.
Yeah,
if they don't play with that intensity, if they look, like they looked against Tulane, or some of the inconsistency that plagued us when we played Nebraska, that's when I start to worry. Or if we look worse than we did in those games, which coming off of it's a huge letdown spot for the Cats. So that's like the biggest enemy we're fighting this weekend is ourselves.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I rewind a little bit and I think back to coming into when we were 5-2 coming out of the Penn State and Purdue back to back, and we talked then about how, ever since that Purdue game, we've just been trying to position ourselves for the stretch run, knowing how hard it would be to get wins in this stretch run because of, who we were playing, where we were playing, etc. But again, I think what makes this sting so bad is it's becoming clear, not just during this stretch run, but during the stretch that just preceded it, that again, like this team is just so good. And, like I don't know if that's all time Northwestern good, but upper echelon Northwestern good in so many, key areas. And that somehow like that this game effectively, very well may determine whether or not this Northwestern team bowls. And that's just wild to me. Like it's like this team, it just feels like should have a stronger record than they do right now. And that's the thing is like guys were saying, like we have to come out and play this superior game. And again, like credit to the guys, like I mean, they nothing but fight from this team and like at that knockdown drag out with Michigan. But I just think we're flat better than this team. You look at like the Gophers' like recent run. I mean, like you look at their last like 5 or 6 games, they've been obliterated 3 times, like erased.
That Iowa game. Oof.
Yeah. They should have lost to Purdue, who's bad. They should have lost to Michigan State, who's bad. This is not a good football team. Like, we're better. Does that guarantee us anything? No, it absolutely does not, especially this season, not after the month we've just had. But you look and you're like, I want to believe that there's something karmically waiting for us here. Like, for the love of God, after the month that we have just had as Northwestern fans, like, is there no karma that this seven, that game seven in Wrigley is finally the first win. We were talking friend of the pod, Mike Hayes, where we had mentioned on a previous pod that it had been five, and he was like, "Oh my God." He was like, I thought it was like three, and then you remembered it's like five, and it's like, yeah, it's been a lot. We've lost 6 games in that building now. It's a lot of games. And then, number seven, lucky seven, can finally be the one. I mean, it should. We're just better than Minnesota. But again, I'm like, the way this past month has gone, I begrudge no one anything who doesn't wanna, who thinks that we're gonna have to do everything in our power to fight to win this one.
So here's something that I think gives me some hope that we won't see a letdown this week. And that's, you look back at the emotion after the Penn State win, right? Like, that was a huge win on the road. Emotions are sky high, right? And it could have been real easy to come home and play a down Purdue team and just fall asleep. And we didn't do that. Like, we kept it going. I think about something that, not to pull the Broncos into this, but after, the Broncos' massive comeback against the Giants, like that massive fourth quarter, Sean Payton was saying the biggest, like, teams lose the following game after that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And they focused on the teams that have made these huge comebacks and, come out with this emotional win and what happens to them the following week. I think the same can be held in like an emotional loss like this, a loss in sort of gut punch fashion. You can I mean, yeah, it's not the same emotion, but that was a high emotion game. And seeing how they came out against Purdue gives me hope that Braun will at least be able to take that letdown factor out. Obviously, there's plenty else that is going into this game and plenty else that we need to worry about. But I at least have that hope that the letdown won't affect us too badly.
Yeah, I hear you there, and I think it's an interesting test for Braun, because I do not think we've had that heartbreaking of a loss during his tenure. And it will be, we'll have to see if, I'm sure the team feels much the way he does, that you heard from him in that press conference. I think he's well liked and well connected to his players. This is very much his team, right? He is a very young head coach. There's one poster that was kind of wondering, or kind of likening this tenure to Indiana and Kurt Cignetti, and saying there's no excuses, why, yada yada yada. And the only thing I would point out is this is year 3 of David Braun's head coaching experience, and Kurt Cignetti is in year 35 of his head coaching experience.
Right. Yeah.
And I just think, that these are the kind of tests that craft who you are as a head coach, and your ability to channel the emotion, whether it's off of a big win or off of a heartbreaking loss, and what can happen the next week. And this team still has a ton to play for. That's Sam, the piece I would add to what you said before is this team has a ton to play for.
Absolutely.
And there's a pride factor, certainly, but there's very, very legitimately a bowl, playing for a winning record. There's a ton of opportunity still on the plate for the guys. And I hope that is that, the senior laden nature of this team, John, that you talked about earlier, the brotherhood that they clearly have within their locker room, that these are the things that can come together this coming Saturday to not just stave off that potential for a letdown, but to steamroll the Gophers, because the running game is certainly this team's strength, and Iowa actually absolutely put it to them. Run game and defense. I mean, we are very much built in that image. So let's see us do the exact same thing to the Gophers.
totally agree. I should mention as an aside, after being able to be in the greatest environment possible to watch the Michigan game, I'll be watching at least the first half of this game on a plane or not at all, and then trying to desperately find a TV somewhere in the Atlanta airport because I'm going to be in transit for this one. Shouts to our man Lake the Posts, though, who watched that Michigan horror show on Gamecast in London.
Whew.
Oh boy, Jay, we love you, buddy. Uh, you've we've all endured the Gamecast experience, but to absorb that one on Gamecast would be rough. But I'll give one more shout to you mentioned the senior laden team on this team, and just a lot of special players on this team. Um, we've been fortunate enough to get to know like some of the families of some of these players, some of these like real veterans on the team, and on top of everything else, that as I was so deep in my feelings after this game, and then just went and just walked like a zombie through Wrigleyville, like all the way back to my car, like 10 blocks or whatever, just like in a daze. But I was also hit because I wasn't going to be at the Minnesota game and just being like, some of these people, this might be the last time that I get to watch some of these games with some of these awesome families or, you never know. But I mean, the way this experience goes and the way different parts of this is just, it's that Northwestern family experience. It's the thing that we all love about Northwestern sports and Northwestern football. And despite everything that went on in that game, I, the experience part of it, I just, I'll always love every moment of those kind of experiences. And I'm bummed that I'm not going to be able to have it for this Minnesota game.
We are a 3.5-point favorite in
And,
this one.
and we should mention to everything Scuzz said about like this team, and you said about this team not rolling over, not getting complacent. Northwestern's undefeated as a favorite this year. They're 4-0. So, if that holds, this team will get to the bowl that it deserves to be at.
I'm curious now that you say it, and now I'm just kind of peeking at our. When have we? We were favored over UCLA, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
By how much?
Ooh, good question. We didn't cover in that one.
Yeah.
It was.
But is that the only game that we haven't covered? USC. We didn't cover USC.
Yeah, we didn't get that was not USC by Tulane. Did we cover against Tulane?
No.
No.
And Nebraska might have been. Was that 6.5 or was it more than 7?
I think it was more. I think
it was
I think I'm pretty. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was 6.5.
Well, so regardless, at worst, I think. So we're 5-5 overall, and what at worst 6-4 against the spread.
Yeah.
I like 4-0 as a favorite better.
Yeah.
That's definitely better. Also, early indications, 45 degrees, partly sunny. So we can
another good day to be at the friendly confines.
Oh man, the weather was glorious for
it
for that Michigan game.
Like,
I mean, low 60s and sunny. I mean, it was beautiful.
I should have been there with you, John. I bums me out to all end that I'm still trying to kick this cold that and I couldn't make it, but
Cold.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, look, I was outside raking leaves for hours today. You've got a cold. Scuzz, I'm sure like just your day to day. I'm like, and then this game, it's a miracle we're all even like getting through this. Like it's
Well, I won't lie. Sam, you talked about the news earlier, and for me, it is welcome news that this Northwestern series at Wrigley is over. And a lot of that is these last 2 years have really been a marriage of necessity. I mean, that being said, there's no reason that Northwestern couldn't have played these these November home games on the lake. I think it would have been a tough sell for a lot of fans, with the wind and the potential for cold, etc. But outside of that, I mean, even even before the Ohio State game last year, it felt like the Wrigley experience was one that had been, it just kind of run its course for Northwestern fans. It didn't have the same, luster or excitement. It is nowhere near campus. Certainly, it is a boon for Northwestern fans in the city. But
it's also a boon for all the opposing team fans in the city.
And we knew last year that we were going to be sorely outnumbered because of, what was it, Ohio State and Wrigley and Iowa last year?
Ohio State and Illinois.
Illinois, that's right. But we just knew that this experience was not going to go the way we wanted it to go. And I again, I don't have anything against it. I just think Northwestern is a small fan base, and this play a football game in a baseball stadium for excitement and uniqueness, etc. Like that goes out the window after the third time you do it, and it is a premium ticket and all those other things because of all those other fans, and it just we have grown past this. We're building, that stadium up north. When you listen to David Braun's press conference, I guess this is where I wanted to ultimately get to. This program has matured and grown beyond the idea of Chicago's Big Ten team. Let Northwestern be your second favorite team. Let's, get a cash day at Wrigley because we can, because it's iconic. We're Northwestern effing football. And from now on, you're going to come to our palace up in Evanston, and we're going to make that an incredible home field advantage. And I just this next season, I don't know what's going to transpire with the coaching staff. There's of course going to be turnover with the players, et cetera. There's a lot of variables and a lot of things could and very well likely will change. But this is as frustrating as painful as the last 3 weeks have been, and as ultimately we might look back on this 2025 season for what it could have been instead of what it was. This is a line of demarcation. I don't want to say a turning point because I think people will mishear what I'm trying to say, but a line of demarcation as we go into next season and the way that this program could and should operate.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see how this team shapes itself coming out of this year. However these last two games go, whether we win, whether we lose, whether we go bowling, whether we don't, it's going to be really interesting to see the changes, because there will be changes. And we'll go into more of those changes as some come available, and as we find out exactly what's going to change. And I know we're all hoping for some substantive change, potentially on the offensive side. We got to do something different offensively, because what we're doing this year just ain't it.
Ain't working.
We said several weeks ago, that Lujan is probably coaching for his job. I have yet to see anything that indicates to me that he's done anything that warrants keeping him next year. Not sitting here calling for anyone to be fired. That's not what I'm here to do. But something's got to change for next year, and we'll talk kind of more about those changes. Like I say, after the season's over, and we start to see some of the potential changes come into action.
I'll say this, which I think is again a line of demarcation. If you think certainly back to the Fitz years, I mean, there were a lot of those years where there's a sizable portion of the fan base that was irate and angry at the end of the season and calling for, changes and this, that, and the other thing. And we were always reluctant to go there, not because of any loyalty or insider status or anything, but just because we were there's no way in hell that Northwestern is going to move on from Pat Fitzgerald. It's not going to happen. They're not going to do it. And obviously, other circumstances ultimately, came to bear. But as we look at what Mark Jackson, as we look at what Northwestern might do, at what Mark Jackson is going to want to do as we think about going into this new era next year, I legitimately feel like anything's a possibility. There will be some changes. There's no way we're just going to run it back. That's just not how these things work.
Not after seeing Braun's presser after that game. Like, this is
Yeah.
not a run it back situation.
And even if we win the next 2 games and go 7-5, this is just it doesn't. This is not the springboard from which you leap into that new stadium, et cetera, and that new experience. But there's also nothing that I feel like is off the table. I feel like they could keep Braun, they could start over. That, like, there's a whole host of things that could or might happen. And so I think, unlike in the past, where I certainly have been a little pragmatic about, like, why would I talk about whether or not we should keep Fitz? You know, and I'm thinking about the 2013, 2014, 2019 kind of some of those down years in between some of the other up ones. I think anything's on the table as we go into 26.
Agreed. And I think if you mentioned that, the whole Fitz era too. I think Northwestern fans are just, I mean, part of the reason, and this is where, we're talking about it a little bit here, but obviously, like, Lujan was the thing. Everyone came out of this game, right? That was the talking point.
Yep.
That's where the fingers were pointed, everything. And up until this point in the pod, we haven't really talked that much about it. And it's like, it's not because we're not aware of it, and it's not because, like, we don't get what everyone is saying. But I do think that to everything that Scuzz is saying, like, we as Northwestern fans carry this thing because there was such a long period of time where it's like, we are not changing come hell or high water. So it's like, whatever you think of how the offense was, well, we are not changing personnel here, so you're just going to have to get used to it, and then there's going to be another year of this, and then that was drummed into us, and that is in no way, shape, or form the world that we are living in right now.
No,
that is
not the case anymore.
that is at no point ever been the feel of the David Braun era. It has not been the way he's represented anything. It's not been the way he's acted, and that's not to say that, like, we are suddenly an itinerant program. It's just like there is this sense of, like, we are not changing. We're set in our ways. This is what we are going to do. That has not been in any way, shape or form the feel of the last 3 years. And we have Mark Jackson in here at the same time too. So it's like you're all of you listening, like, your anger and frustration is warranted and totally understandable. But there's no sense in being like, oh, and then, like, I'm super frustrated and nothing's going to change and blah, blah, blah. It's like, the things are going to change. Things are going to happen here. Like, I mean, this is, you've, like, just the thing to do right now is just to push for this team and hope that this team, can get a strong finish to the season, because that's what we all want.
I feel like I'm belaboring it by continuing to beat this horse, but I want to build on what you just said, John, because that support is really important. And I don't say that from, like, a nice guy, like, let's all, be positive kind of mode. Like, I've made this comment several times this year. Every decision that this program, that this athletic department has made in the last 2 years belies that they want to act like a big boy program. They want to remain in the Big Ten, in the playoff era, and they want to compete. You don't build an $850 million stadium to go 6-6 every year. And now, with, I'll call it, the more level playing field than we've had the last 4 or 5 years with regard to NIL, and the fact that the school can contribute directly, and what that allows Northwestern to do on the back of, like, how much money that they make as a Big Ten program, with the changes to the academic calendar vis-a-vis the transfer portal. I shouldn't say changes to the academic portal.
We'll see what happens with the transfer portal changes. Its time frame for, like, next year. That's going to be real interesting, but that's another conversation.
I guess I'll put it this way: with an athletic director who understands how important that is,
yes, and
immediately worked to align things such that Northwestern could participate at the same level of their peers in the Big Ten in the transfer portal, a thing that didn't exist in the prior 5 seasons. Another factor that's a part of every big boy college football program or athletic program around is unwavering fan support.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we can't get mad and gnash our teeth and get all pissed off. But Ohio State,
As evidenced by
Michigan,
earlier this episode,
Texas, A&M, the Florida school, like all these big programs, and granted, it's because their fan bases are like rabbits, but they show up and they show out and they support the program every time, and like, you know, you can call them dumb, you can call them Ohio State, you can call them whatever you want. That is a part of it. If you want this to be that kind of program that's competing and pushing and challenging, and we're not going to be Ohio State, but to have the consistency of an Iowa or the potential of a Clemson, we need the fans to be part of it. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't be mad or disappointed or shout that you want the offensive coordinator fired, but it means you better well damn show up and not sell your tickets to some opposing fan.
Agreed. And if you've got the ability, go buy a ticket for Minnesota, get out there and show out for this team. And it's like let's beat Minnesota, get bowl eligible, then let's go down and beat our rival, and then let's go win a bowl game. Let's do all these things. Let's get David Braun that toehold that he needs going into the new era, this new generation in this new building. Let's get these good things, support this team, and let's watch them turn the corner late here and get where they're trying to go.
if you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients. No fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group. Compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation. And go Cats. So normally we go through the rest of the conference. We've seen some of the games, we've seen some of the action. I looking back on this past weekend, I know I did not watch anything else after the Michigan game. Like I said, I caught a few minutes of the Minnesota-Oregon game on Friday night. Obviously, Oregon just cleaned Minnesota's clocks 42-13. But, until looking at the scores here, I was blissfully unaware of anything else that happened. I knew that Iowa and USC were kind of going toe-to-toe. Did not see that USC came back and ended up winning that game. I figured Ohio State was going to throttle UCLA, especially with Nico out with the concussion. They did. Figured that Indiana was going to beat the pants off of Wisconsin. They did. None of these were surprises. So USC beating Iowa 26-21 in the rain. I know we'd...
I thought it was going to be good weather. I guess not.
Yeah, right. It was like the one rainy day in LA. And of course that's where Iowa makes their hay. But credit to USC. I mean, they came back and they won that game. So,
I mean, outside of that result, there was kind of nothing that was in our game. Frankly, there was nothing really that was that question or went unsurprisingly. I guess maybe I thought Illinois would put up more than 24 on Maryland. But I mean, there was nothing really momentous either. No. I mean, USC plays Oregon now, but until or unless Ohio State or Indiana lose, and neither one of them's even been, really, really challenged to this point. Outside,
Penn State.
Penn State
yeah, you're right. That Penn State and Indiana game, I kind of forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. But I guess maybe a better way to say it is nobody left on Indiana's schedule looks like.
Oh no.
they're really going to challenge them. And then, like Ohio State has to get over this Michigan monkey, but even if they do, they might still be higher rated than Oregon and go into the Big Ten championship game anyway. So there's not much that changed this weekend there's not much to talk about, honestly.
The only thing, my only takeaway from the whole slate of games is two awful football teams both got smoked, Wisconsin and Maryland, and both of those teams have announced to their fan base that they are staying the course for next season with their respective coaches.
That is so interesting. That is so interesting
let's go.
that they're doing that.
And it's fascinating too, because I honestly don't know. I honestly am wondering the extent to which the national landscape has kind of shaped some of these things, because we've got about $200 million in buyout money about to be paid out here. It's an absolutely ludicrous amount of money, although a big piece of James Franklin's gets subtracted now that he's got the Virginia Tech job. Virginia Tech.
Is that official?
It is official.
It is official.
Yeah. No, that closed this afternoon.
They've even mentioned that Penn State is on the hook for less of this buyout now, because
$9 million instead of $49 million. So the offset language.
So that was Penn State. Like, did they send some people down to Blacksburg? Like, hey, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny because both Wisconsin and Maryland have both said the same thing relative to NIL, which is effectively like, instead of firing the coach, we're just going to kind of turn into the path of the tornado and just be like, we're going to increase resources and just see what we can do here. And obviously with Wisconsin's exorbitant buyout, it makes it even more sense. Loxley's buyout is lower, but it's with Maryland, though. I mean, really, well, I'm sure either fan base would not. I mean, what you have to weigh all this against is a fan base that has watched two coaches just fail for several years now, and being told that they're, that buckle up for another season and NIL will sort it out. We shall see.
So kind of looking at this weekend's slate again, there's only one game that is going to be, have much, riding on it. The Minnesota Northwestern, like I said earlier, we're a 3.5 point favorite. That game's on at 11 a.m. on Big Ten Network. You could, at commercial breaks, if you were so inclined, switch over to Fox to watch Rutgers and Ohio State with the Buckeyes as a 31.5 point favorite.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. 2:30 on CBS, USC Oregon. You mentioned that earlier. Oregon is a 10.5 point home favorite.
It's a big game. Game. These two know each other well. I guess whoever wins is then in the on-deck circle if either of the big two, stumble and fail. But I don't know what the tiebreakers are, so it might not matter.
USC beat Michigan. Michigan's 6-1 in conference.
Oh, so USC would hold that tiebreaker over Michigan, yeah.
Yeah. But if Michigan beats Ohio State, then who knows?
Yeah. God, wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, right. Michigan State is at Iowa. Iowa's 16.5 point home favorite.
I mean, there's Michigan State, Iowa, and Michigan, Maryland are two hide your kids games. Those are
pretty much. Michigan, Maryland is 3:00 on Big Ten Network. Michigan, a 13.5 point road favorite. You got Nebraska at Penn State. Penn State,
this was interesting.
9.5 point home favorite. That's the NBC game. Penn State, with their one Big Ten conference win, is almost a 10-point favorite over Nebraska on the road.
I was going to say.
Yes, it's Nebraska minus Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, so it's Penn State's defense against a backup quarterback who I guess got a bye to be working with the ones and I don't know. We'll see what happens here. Even with Raiola, I would have probably looked at Penn State as probably a favorite given where this game is being played, but who knows?
Exactly. 6:30 on Big Ten Network. Illinois at Wisconsin. Illinois is. I'm actually surprised they're only a 7.5 point road favorite.
I am too. I think I know Wisconsin has had some extra defensive fight as the season, but even I think some of that is even kind of overblown. I think we would all certainly like though to see Illinois kind of stumble here, and feel better about that. Don't want to see Illinois just totally dust the Badgers.
So I mean, Illinois, after being, really good in the first, minus that IU game, they were really good the first 6 weeks of the season. Since then, they scored 16 points against Ohio State, 25 against Washington, 35 against Rutgers, and 24 against Maryland. They're not exactly firing on all cylinders offensively.
Yeah, good point.
Being on the road, cold weather, old school football, right? Like an improving Wisconsin defense, maybe. To your point, I agree. It's probably been a little overblown. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they look. I think by the same token, a 40-10 thrashing by the Illini would not be a shock, especially like who knows what Brett Bielema holds in his heart for the Wisconsin Badgers. I mean, he left them, but I'm sure he has a strong desire to show out and be strong in this game.
And then you got Big Ten After Dark, 9:30 on NBC, Washington at UCLA. The Huskies are a 10.5-point road favorite.
Washington on the road, but not on the road in the Midwest.
Yeah, exactly. It's on the road in the same time zone. So.
Pacific time zone. Is Nico out?
Not sure. Obviously, he didn't play last week with the concussion, so at this point, as we record on Monday night, hard to say. Obviously, we'll know more as the week goes on. Nationally, I don't. This is SEC Cupcake Week, week before rivalry game. So it's not even worth like going through. Game day's going back to Oregon for this Oregon USC game. That's kind of interesting.
Cowards
out there earlier, yeah. BYU Cincinnati is on the table. They could have gone there.
Miami at Virginia Tech, the James Franklin effect.
Yeah. He's not coaching this year.
No,
right?
No.
Okay.
I'm sure I won't be. I bet he's there though.
He'll be.
So I feel like I recall when he got hired by Penn State, and he was there the following week, like hanging out. But maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
I mean, Fickle came in to coach the Badgers in their bowl game that year, which was odd.
Yeah.
Did he? That is odd. That's really odd.
He left Cincinnati, got to Madison, and coached their bowl game.
Huh. That is weird.
So I mean, they could have gone Pitt, Georgia Tech, BYU, Cincinnati. Those are two top 25 matchups.
This will always be remembered as the weekend that Eastern Illinois went down to Tuscaloosa and knocked off Alabama.
Oh man, that'd be amazing.
All right, we got to talk a little basketball here.
Yeah,
because Friday night, oh boy, talk about a knockdown drag out. Northwestern DePaul at Wintrust. This game was banging. I mean, this was a physical matchup. Northwestern got absolutely crushed on the offensive boards, but got a couple free throws at the end and came away with a 81-79 win over DePaul. 4-0 on the year, 1-0 away from Welsh Ryan, but I mean, this was an intense game.
That was my overriding thing during the rest of watching that game in the moment, and I watched the whole thing, is just how great of a game it was. And the idea that, Northwestern is a really fun, really athletic team. DePaul was clearly up for this game and was able to assert their physicality inside big time in this game.
Especially on the offensive glass.
Yes. But it was but Northwestern and DePaul, you want this to be a big thing. These are two major conference teams playing in Chicago. The collective history of these two teams, the amount of times that both have been good at the same time have rarely overlapped. And, this is Chicago. It's like a basketball hotbed. You want this game to matter. And it really felt like it did. And it felt like it was a great game in an awesome environment. And the Northwestern piece of it, it's a lot of what we said last week talking about this team. Just unbelievably fun, is going to get bodied by the most physical teams in the conference. And that's just it's a fascinating blend. Like this is an unreal athletic team with a lot of just electric players that is super fun to watch, that is going to have to find a way to work around the fact that we don't have size.
Great game. I mean, Nick Martinelli, obviously 24 points, shot great. Played 34 minutes. Arrington Page, 10 of 11 from the floor, 22 points, 5 boards. He was a monster. And I know we don't. He's not big, but he was an inside presence.
So I didn't watch this game. He was an inside presence. He took 11 shots, no 3-pointers, which I love. I hate the Chris Collins like big guy comes outside to shoot the 3 mode. I just really hate it.
In like the Luke Hunger 3-point era.
Yeah, it hasn't been great. Maybe Alex Ola was good at that. I can't remember. But anyways, only shoots 4 free throws, and I'm curious, like, DePaul, were they being physical with him on that side of the floor, or were they reserving most of their physicality for their own offense?
No, it was pretty clear. And again, like DePaul looked like the stronger basketball team. And that was very clear on the offensive glass, like Sam was saying, but also in the way that DePaul was exerting their offense. I mean, again, after Page, who is big, but not Matt Nicholson big, we don't really have another big. I'm just
surprised they didn't foul him more.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I mean, like offensively, and this is why this was such a great game. Like we had a great offensive game. Pretty much everything was going. We were shooting really well. We were distributing the ball really well. It was. It really was. It was that DePaul was getting second chance points and was able to get into the paint. And that was the thing. I mean, it really was. You watched this Northwestern basketball team, man, it's such an athletic team. They're so athletic. They're just not big. And that's the thing. Like this workaround is fascinating because they get up and down the court. Reed continues to just look electric. Martinelli it's amazing. We've all watched him shoot these shots hundreds of times, but every time you watch that herky-jerky flat hook from either side, that he can get off either foot. The defense is never ready for it. It travels laterally to the basket. It always goes in. And it's just such an unstoppable weapon. And he was just unleashing it again today. And it's just like, this team is really fun.
An unstoppable weapon with the aesthetics of a Shaq free throw.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. But again, you saw too, like it's all the different pieces of this team and all the youth of this team, and it's so fun. This team is just so fun.
Speaking of all the pieces, 9 players in with double-digit minutes, and I feel like this has been like we thought that this might happen this year, that we would break the mold a little bit, because for years with Collins, it has been you start out the year and you see all the young guys playing, they're getting time, that's great, and then it gets down to crunch time in a close game against a named opponent. The Big East is not a Power 4 conference, but whatever you want to call it, a power conference, a power opponent, in a high spotlight moment, and it's a rotation of 7. And you got Boo Booing playing 40 minutes and Martinelli playing 40 minutes. And Martinelli was the high minute with 34, which I would expect. I would anticipate him playing 34, 35, 36 minutes a game. But none of our guards played more than 30. Reed only played 22. Jake West was out there for 16. You had Wyndham for 11, Mullins for 17. Like that kind of balance and depth is what is going to keep Northwestern fresh and in the game late. And I feel like that has been a critical deficiency for years.
There also is the foul trouble that might have come into play there. I mean,
yeah, okay.
We had.
Damn it, Sam! I was really hoping this was a thing.
It is a thing. It absolutely is. I mean,
Hope it's a thing.
But I mean, Singleton, Martinelli, Page, Reed all
got four fouls. Yeah,
Mullins had 3.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of fouls.
It's again, this is not a big basketball team. It's really not. It's unbelievably athletic. Like a guy like Sharavino is like a super athletic wing. And that a guy who's like that tall can get up like that. But it's just we're gonna play some teams that have a couple of dudes who are just monsters. Monsters in strength, monsters in size. That are going to get into the paint and get a lot of boards and draw a lot of fouls. And that's the thing. I mean, to me, it really is fascinating because this is such a electric basketball team that is scoring points at a clip that we haven't seen from very many Northwestern basketball teams, and they're probably going to need to do that to win basketball games. But watching them try to figure this out and find the right way to do it is going to be a lot of fun.
Let's go to Field Hockey Corner.
Well, hold on.
Before we do that. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Next game, UVA. This is a tournament, right? Or a showcase?
Yeah.
So that's on the 21st. CBS Sports Network.
So Friday, CBS Sports Network, Virginia, and then South Carolina on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I believe both those games are in West Virginia, I think.
Yeah, this is not a tournament. It's just a showcase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no like win one and win both, and then you play in some championship game. So this is just 2 games against other power foes. This will be when we really learn, what we're cooking with here with this team. Not that they can't grow and improve throughout the course of the year, but these, if DePaul was the first big test, like this is, parts 2 and 3, right on the heels.
And then, coming back for the Thanksgiving game against Oklahoma State at United Center. Those are your next 3 games. And then, at Wisconsin, home for Ohio State.
Hooah!
Yeah. So, our little creamy frosting comes after Ohio State, in the middle of December when we got Jackson State, Valpo, Butler, that's not really cream puffy. Howard, and then into conference play from there. It's gonna be exciting. Women's hoops off to a hot start as well. They went and beat DePaul today, Monday. So that I don't know if they've haven't really gotten into the women's basketball team too much. Not quite sure what there is, but.
The schedule in a little while is going to greatly ramp up in difficulty for the women's team, but credit to them, they've handled their business so far.
Yeah. So now it's not Field Hockey Corner; it's the Final Four. We talked last week about how ridiculous it was that Northwestern did not get to host a regional. They had to go to Virginia. To play in the UVA regional, and they took care of business. 5-1 win over Yale, and then in a slugfest again. Second year in a row, the Elite Eight game was just a knockdown dragout. But this game against Miami, Ohio, they get the go-ahead goal with a little bit more than a minute left in the regulation. And then hold off to beat Miami, Ohio, going to the Final Four again, taking on number 1 seed North Carolina. But
you can't have Northwestern field hockey without having a hero who sends the team to the Final Four. Last year, of course, it was friend of the pod Lauren Wattis. This year, Grace Schultz, and this was an amazing one. I mean. You mentioned we were just talking about hoops in this Greenbrier, and I was like, oh, it's in West Virginia. I so wanted you to say Virginia, so I was like, so Northwestern can go dominate in Virginia again, because it was like
dominate in West Virginia.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. Like Northwestern field hockey got screwed multiple ways. One, not getting to host a regional, but two, and really this is the nation, um, getting screwed over here is not putting number one and number two in the nation in the national title game, for reasons. Instead, they're going to meet in the semifinal. But the Cats went out to Virginia. They blew the doors off of Yale. Another dominant game from Ashley Sessa, 2 goals, I think an assist. Piper Boers also had a great one in this one. But then in this game against Miami, yeah, it was like you can look at the stats and Northwestern just dominated the stats and was just peppering the goal. Could not get it, could not get the breakthrough, could not get the breakthrough. Kind of shades of the semifinal last year in the Final Four. And then, yeah, at the death, they got a penalty and set up an awesome play where Grace Schultz sent it in to Ilse Tromp. Ilse Tromp sent it right back to Schultz, and Schultz got the massive goal right at the end. So yeah, a huge one, huge win. A another heroic moment for this incredible team, and yeah, now in the semifinal, we're gonna get the matchup everyone's been waiting for all season, the matchup that everyone knows should have been pegged for the final. And the NCAA Field Hockey Committee is just going to have to eat this giant error that looked stupid at the time. It looks ridiculously stupid now, with Virginia not even making the final of the regional. Northwestern did exactly what everyone knew Northwestern was going to do, which was they won a regional, and now they're headed to the Final Four for what is it, the fourth year in a row? Is it fourth year in a row? Fifth year in a row? Fifth year in a row.
It's five.
Five,
The,
yeah.
the fifth year in a row. Um, uh, Yen Yen Lee has been chronicling this stat forever that Northwestern field hockey and Northwestern lacrosse are on this insane run that their record of consecutive Final Fours is something like 10 consecutive Final Fours for these teams, or maybe even more. Just a ludicrous run. But yeah, huge one. Friday, right? It's Friday at I
Yep,
think
Friday
1:30.
at 1:30. Friday
Yeah.
at 1:30. So Friday afternoon, and then the championship game is on Sunday at noon. So
Yeah. So Friday 1:30 ESPNU. Tune in and watch these two Titans. They've been circling each other all year. Number one and number two. Been waiting for each other, and finally we're gonna get to see it.
anything else to cover before we get out of here tonight?
Probably a quick shout out for women's soccer that
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Went to the NCAA tournament, played Alabama on, what was that, Friday night?
Took them
Yeah,
to the
Friday night.
brink.
Took them to the brink and lost in OT on PKs, which is a real bummer. And then Northwestern cross country has made the NCAA finals, regionals. I don't exactly know how it works, but it's notable. We've mentioned this just ever so briefly a couple times on the pod, but it's worth calling out again. Like 5 years ago, this program did not exist at the varsity level, and they have built themselves up into a competitive program in virtually no time. That's really exciting.
Yeah, they made the NCAA national championship later this month. So that's awesome. That's absolutely fantastic. They had 5 runners finish in the top 20 in the Midwest Regionals. They took second place in the Midwest Regionals. So congratulations. That's just fantastic.
For my final thought, I'll take it back to where we started. The dark place we started in, at the end of this football game that we all endured. But I'll say this, as I mentioned right off the top, was super privileged to be sitting with a bunch of people who we've all had the pleasure to get to know over these past couple of years and build some really close friendships with, and people that, the kind of thing that you all know, like, makes this community so great. And in the immediate aftermath of that game, when I was low and just looking to stumble out of that stadium and just find my way back to my car, ran into, one of these people, that is just part of this family that we've been privileged to get to know, and someone, kind of person that we've just loved to have these talks with and have these relationships with. And I looked at him and said, I don't know how we're gonna do the pod this week. And he said, "You'll figure it out. You always do." And just really appreciate that. We really appreciate words like that from y'all in this community, and we love y'all. And you carry us through the low moments, and you make the high moments all the better. So let's go get a couple more of those high moments. Let's go beat the Gophs.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, at all of them at Westlaw Pirates. You can always email us, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics, and look for us in the west side of Wrigley Field flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Skasbo, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.